A fateful encounter. In a distant corner of the galaxy, on a planet known as Zephyria, a human explorer named Jake Talbot walked through the bustling streets of an alien marketplace. The air was filled with exotic scents and the chatter of foreign tongues as beings from across the stars bartered their wares. Jake, ever curious, took in the sights with wonder. As he turned down a narrow alleyway, a sound caught his ear, a soft, distressed cry coming from the shadows. Intrigued, Jake followed the noise until he came upon a heartbreaking scene. Huddled against a wall was an alien woman, her features delicate and her skin a soft shade of lavender. In her arms, she held a small, frightened child. Tears streamed down the mother's face as she tried to soothe her daughter. Jake's heart went out to them instantly. He approached slowly, not wanting to startle them further. "Hello," he said gently. "My name is Jake. I'm here to help if you let me." The alien woman looked up at him with large, glistening eyes. "I am Zyla," she said, her voice trembling. "And this is my daughter, Luma. We have nowhere to go. No one will help us." Jake knelt down beside them, his voice soft with compassion. "You're not alone anymore," he promised. "Tell me what happened. I'll do whatever I can." And so, in that dimly lit alley, an unlikely bond was formed. Zola poured out her story to this kind human stranger, how she and Luma were refugees, fleeing persecution in their homeland. How they had come to Zephyria hoping for a new start, only to find themselves ostracized and mistreated at every turn. As Jake listened, his resolve hardened. He had seen too much suffering in his travels to stand by and do nothing. These two needed a friend, a protector, and he would be that for them. "Come with me," Jake said, helping Zilla to her feet. "I have a place where you can stay, where you'll be safe." Luma, still sniffling, looked up at him with a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Hand in hand, the three of them walked out of the alley and into the light. It was the beginning of an extraordinary journey, one that would test the limits of human compassion and resilience. For in that moment, a single act of kindness had set in motion a chain of events that would change all of their lives forever. Little did they know, as they made their way through the crowded streets, that their story was just beginning. The challenges ahead would be great, but so too would be the rewards. For in reaching out to help another, Jake had embarked on a transformative path, one that would lead not only to the redemption of Zilla and Luma, but to the reaffirmation of all that was best in the human spirit. And so, with the first tentative steps of trust and understanding, their tale began to unfold under the alien skies of Zephyria. The journey of a lifetime awaited them, filled with trials and triumphs, sorrows and joys. But one thing was certain, they would face it all together, bound by a connection that transcended species and circumstance. For in the end, what mattered most was not the differences that divided them, but the common humanity that united them all. Overcoming adversity. As the sun rose over the alien cityscape of Zephyria, Jake, Zilla, and Luma began their first day together. In the safety of Jake's small but comfortable dwelling, Zilla shared more about the hardships she and her daughter had faced. "In our homeland, we were persecuted for our beliefs," Zilla explained, her voice heavy with sorrow. "We fled here hoping for a better life, but found only more prejudice and cruelty. No one would give me work, and we had nowhere to live. I fear for Luma's future." Jake listened intently, his heart aching for their struggle. "You've been through so much," he said softly, "but you're not alone anymore. I'll help you in any way I can." And so, with the determination that defined his human spirit, Jake set out to make good on his promise. He used his connections in the city to find Zilla a job, working in a local market selling handcrafted goods. He watched Luma while Zilla worked, teaching the bright young girl about his home planet Earth and the wonders of the universe. But even as they made progress, challenges arose at every turn. There were those in the city who looked upon Zilla and Luma with suspicion and distrust, who saw their friendship with a human as unnatural. Jake faced their prejudice head-on, never backing down from his commitment to his new friends. One day, as Jake and Zilla were walking home from the market, they were confronted by a group of hostile aliens. "Why do you associate with this outsider?" they demanded of Zila, their voices filled with contempt. "She doesn't belong here, and neither do you, human." Jake stepped forward, shielding Zilla behind him. "She belongs here as much as anyone," he said firmly. "And I belong at her side, as her friend. If you can't accept that, then that's your problem, not ours." The confrontation left Zilla shaken, but also deeply moved by Jake's unwavering support. "I've never had anyone stand up for me like that," she said, her eyes shining with gratitude. Jake smiled, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "That's what friends do," he said simply. "We stand together, no matter what." And stand together they did, in the face of every obstacle and challenge. With Jake's ingenuity and resourcefulness, they found ways to make their lives better day by day. He taught Zila new skills, helped her to navigate the complexities of Zephyrian society. Under his guidance, Luma blossomed, her natural curiosity and intelligence nurtured by Jake's patient teachings. Slowly but surely, they began to build a life together, a life of purpose and meaning, despite the odds stacked against them. And as they did, something remarkable began to happen. The walls that had once divided them, the barriers of species and culture and circumstance, began to crumble away, replaced by a bond that was stronger than any force that could come against them. For in the end, what they were building was more than just a life. It was a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a spirit of resilience and adaptability, of compassion and connection. A spirit that could overcome any adversity, bridge any divide, and find a way forward no matter how dark the path may seem. And so, as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Jake, Zilla, and Luma continued on their journey together. They faced each new trial with courage and determination, drawing strength from the love and loyalty they shared. And with every step, they moved closer to a future brighter than any they had dared to imagine, a future of hope, of possibility, and of enduring human triumph against all odds. A growing bond. As time passed on Zephyria, the bond between Jake, Zola, and Luma only grew stronger. What had begun as an act of compassion had blossomed into a deep and abiding friendship, one that transcended the boundaries of species and culture. In the evenings, after the work of the day was done, they would gather in Jake's cozy living room, sharing stories and laughter over meals that Jake prepared from recipes of his homeworld. Zola was fascinated by the tales of Earth, of its vast oceans and towering mountains, its diverse peoples and rich histories. In turn, she shared with Jake the legends and traditions of her own people, opening his eyes to the beauty and wisdom of her ancient culture. Luma, too, was growing and thriving under their care. With Jake's guidance and Zilla's love, she was becoming a curious, confident young girl, eager to learn about the wide universe around her. Jake marveled at her progress, seeing in her the boundless potential of a bright new generation, one that could bridge the gaps between worlds and build a future of unity and understanding. One evening, as they sat together watching the alien sunset paint the sky in hues of lavender and gold, Zyla turned to Jake with a look of deep gratitude. "I never thought I would find a friend like you," she said softly. "You've given us so much, not just a home and safety, but a family, a place to belong." Jake felt a warmth bloom in his chest at her words. "You've given me just as much," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "You've shown me the true meaning of strength and resilience, of love in the face of adversity. I'm a better person for having known you both." As the light faded and the stars began to glimmer in the darkening sky, they sat in comfortable silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Jake reflected on the journey that had brought him here, to this moment and these extraordinary beings who had become so dear to him. He marveled at the twists and turns of fate, at the power of a single act of kindness to change the course of lives and worlds. For he knew, with a certainty that came from the very core of his being, that this was more than just a friendship. It was a testament to the enduring human spirit, to the capacity for connection and compassion that defined the very best of his species. In reaching out to Zila and Luma, in offering them his hand and his heart, He had affirmed something essential about himself and about humanity as a whole. As the night deepened around them, Jake felt a sense of peace and purpose settle over him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever trials they might face, he knew that they would face them together, as a family, bound by ties stronger than blood or species. They had found in each other a home, a haven in a turbulent universe, and that was a bond that could never be broken. With a smile, Jake rose and stretched, turning to his companions. "Come on," he said, his voice filled with warmth and affection. "Let's head inside. I've got a new earth thing to teach you, one that I think you're going to love." And so, as the laughter of an alien child and the gentle voice of her mother mingled with the deep, rich tones of their human friend, the little family made their way inside, ready to face whatever the future might bring. For they had found, in the most unlikely of places, the most precious of treasures, the unbreakable bond of love and understanding that is the very heart and soul of the human experience. Standing up for what's right. Despite the joy and fulfillment that Jake, Zilla, and Luma had found in their unconventional family, the world around them was not always kind. As their bond deepened and their lives became more intertwined, they faced increasing scrutiny and opposition from certain factions of Zephyrian society. There were those who saw their relationship as a threat to the natural order, a perversion of the boundaries that should exist between species. They whispered behind their backs, casting aspersions on Jake's character and questioning Zilla's fitness as a mother. Some even went so far as to demand that the authorities intervene to separate this unnatural union before it could poison the fabric of their society. At first, Jake and Zilla tried to ignore the growing hostility, focusing instead on the love and happiness they had found together. But as the threats and intimidation escalated, they knew they could no longer remain silent. It all came to a head one day in the market square, as Jake and Zilla were setting up their stall for the day's trade. A group of angry Zephyrians approached, led by a fierce-looking male who Jake recognized as a prominent local official. "Enough is enough," the official declared, his voice dripping with contempt. "We will not allow this abomination to continue. The human must leave at once, and the child must be placed in the care of proper Zephyrian guardians." Jake felt a surge of anger and protectiveness rise up within him. He stepped forward, placing himself between the hostile crowd and his beloved family. "We're not going anywhere," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Zilla and Luma are my family, and I will not abandon them." The official sneered, his eyes flashing with malice. "You have no rights here, human. This is our world, and we will not tolerate your interference in our affairs." But Jake stood his ground, drawing on the deep well of courage and conviction that had brought him across the stars to this moment. "This may be your world," he said, his voice ringing out clear and strong. "But Zilla and Luma are a part of it, just as much as any of you. They have just as much right to live and love and thrive as anyone else." Zilla stepped forward then, standing shoulder to shoulder with Jake. "We are not a threat to you," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "We only want to live in peace, to contribute to this society in our own way. Can't you see that our differences make us stronger, not weaker?" For a long, tense moment, the crowd seemed to waver, caught between their prejudices and the power of Jake and Zilla's words. Then, slowly at first, but with growing momentum, individuals began to step forward from the crowd, moving to stand with Jake and Zilla in solidarity. "They're right," said one young Zephyrian woman, her voice shaking but determined. "We can't let fear and hatred guide us. We have to be better than that." Others began to voice their support, their calls for tolerance and understanding growing louder and more insistent. In the face of this show of unity, the official and his supporters had no choice but to back down, slinking away in bitter defeat. As the crowd dispersed, leaving Jake, Zilla, and Luma standing victorious in the market square, Jake felt a rush of pride and gratitude sweep over him. They had faced down the forces of bigotry and intolerance, and they had emerged stronger and more united than ever. "Thank you," Zilla whispered, her eyes shining with tears of relief and joy. "For standing with us, for being our strength." Jake gathered her and Luma into a fierce embrace, his own eyes stinging with emotion. "Always," he said softly. "We're family now and forever. And family stands together, no matter what." And as they held each other close, basking in the warmth of their love and the triumph of their courage, Jake knew that they had won more than just a victory over prejudice that day. They had affirmed the very best of what it meant to be human, the capacity for compassion, for unity, for standing up for what was right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. It was a lesson that would guide them through all the challenges and joys to come, a North Star to steer by in the vast and wondrous expanse of the universe. And with that knowledge, that unshakable faith in the power of their bond, they stepped forward into the future, ready to face whatever lay ahead, together. A new beginning. In the aftermath of their confrontation in the market square, something began to shift in the fabric of Zephyrian society. The story of Jake, Zilla, and Luna's courage and commitment spread like wildfire, igniting conversations and challenging long-held prejudices. Slowly but surely, hearts and minds began to open, as more and more Zephyrians came to see the beauty and strength in diversity. For Jake and his little family, life took on a new rhythm of hope and possibility. With the support of their growing circle of friends and allies, they began to dream of a future they had once hardly dared to imagine, a future in which they could live and love openly, without fear of persecution or judgment. They began to make plans, to lay the foundations for a new life together. Jake used his skills and knowledge to help establish a school where Zephyrian and human children could learn side by side, fostering understanding and cooperation from an early age. Zayla, with her talents for art and crafts, opened a small shop, selling beautiful wares that blended the aesthetics of their two cultures. And Luma, bright, curious Luma, blossomed into a symbol of hope for a new generation. Under Jake and Zilla's loving guidance, she grew into a confident, compassionate young woman, equally at home in the worlds of her birth and her adopted family. She became a bridge between cultures, a living embodiment of the power of love to transcend all boundaries. As the years passed, the little family thrived, their bond growing ever stronger and more unbreakable. They faced challenges, of course. There would always be those who clung to the old ways of fear and division. But they faced them together, drawing strength and courage from the well of their love. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the world around them began to change. More and more mixed families like theirs began to emerge, as the barriers between species and cultures began to blur. The old prejudices, once so deeply entrenched, began to give way to a new spirit of openness and acceptance. It was a change that Jake and Zila had hardly dared to dream of, back in those early days when their love had seemed like an impossible, forbidden thing. But as they looked out over the vibrant, diverse tapestry of the world they had helped to create, they knew that it had all been worth it. One evening, as the three of them sat together in the warm glow of the setting sun, Luma turned to Jake with a smile that was at once deeply knowing and full of childlike wonder. "Tell me the story again," she said, snuggling close to her human father's side. "The story of how you and Mommy found each other, and how you changed the world." Jake looked down at her, his heart so full of love that he thought it might burst. Beside him, Zyla leaned in, her eyes shining with the same emotion. "Well," Jake began, his voice soft with memory, "it all started with a little act of kindness, on a crowded street in a city far, far away." And as he spoke, spinning the tale that had become the legend of their lives, Jake felt a deep sense of gratitude and awe wash over him. For he knew, with a clarity that went beyond words, that this was the true legacy of his human spirit, not the battles fought or the victories won, but the love that had transformed them all. It was a love that had begun with a simple choice to reach out to a stranger in need, a love that had blossomed in the face of adversity, growing stronger and more resilient with every trial, a love that had, in the end, remade a world. As the last light faded from the sky and the first stars began to twinkle overhead, Jake drew his family close, marveling at the miracle of their existence, and he knew, with a certainty that came from the very core of his being, that this was what it meant to be human, to hope, to dream, to reach across the vastness of space and difference, to find connection, purpose, and endless, boundless love.